Imagine you're digging through the sun-baked dirt somewhere in the Middle East,
Okay, I'm with you.
and you uncover this piece of clay, you brush away the dust, and you realize it's, 4,000 years old,
Right.
but it's just a totally mundane, everyday receipt for a couple of sheep.
Which, I mean, most people would probably just toss into a box in a museum basement and completely forget about.
Exactly. But what if I told you that the signature at the bottom of that receipt isn't just a name? What if that signature is actually like a secret hidden map to a completely lost God?
It really does completely flip your perspective on history, doesn't it?
It totally does.
Because we're so used to thinking of ancient religions as these, these grand things carved into marble or written in massive epic texts.
Yeah, big stone temples and all that.
Right. But the reality is, for some of the most influential civilizations in human history, those textbooks either never existed or they burned to the ground millennia ago.
Which is exactly why we are so glad you could join us today.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Deep Dive.
So glad to have you here.
Today we are looking at this brilliant piece of historical detective work. It's a PhD thesis by Luciano Esteban Monti, and it's titled A Systematic Approach to the Hurrian Pantheon, the Onomastic Evidence.
That's a mouthful.
It is, but we're going to break it down. We are going to explore how the simple, everyday act of naming a child can serve as this incredible linguistic time machine.
Yeah, and the academic term for this is onomastics, which is basically just the scientific study of names.
Right.
And today we're going to use onomastics to decode the Hurrians.
Who were, just to give some context, a massive, sprawling civilization.
Huge. They dominated the ancient Near East for over 1,000 years. I mean, they shaped all the empires around them.
But they left us almost no direct religious mythology of their own.
Exactly. Their entire pantheon of gods was basically hidden in plain sight, just encoded inside the personal names of everyday people.
It's wild. But okay, before we can start pulling ancient gods out of clay tablets, we have to start with this surprisingly massive philosophical question.
Oh, here we go.
What exactly is a proper name? I mean, does a name carry a deep intrinsic meaning? Or is it just like an arbitrary sticker we slap on a person to tell them apart in a crowded room?
You're hitting on a debate that stretches literally from ancient Greece right into modern linguistics.
Wow, really?
Oh, yeah. Even the word for name itself is incredibly ancient. If you look at its Indo-European roots, you can trace it from ancient Sanskrit over to the ancient Greek word onoma.
Oh, like onomastics?
Exactly. All the way to Old English, right down to the word name that you and I use today. Linguists actually consider it part of our paleontological lexicon.
So it's literally one of the oldest concepts humanity possesses.
It is. But defining how it functions, that is where the philosophers start arguing.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because it feels like there are two very different ways to look at it. Let's say I adopt a golden retriever and I name him Caesar.
Okay, cute dog.
Right, but he doesn't suddenly cross the Rubicon and conquer Gaul, He just sits by the door and waits for a treat.
Right. The name doesn't change his nature.
Exactly. So, looking at it that way, the 19th century philosopher John Stuart Mill seems entirely right. Mill basically argued that names are purely denotative.
Meaning they're just empty marks.
Yeah, they point to a subject, but they don't describe what the subject actually is.
Right. And Mill famously used the example of a town called Dartmouth. It was named that because physically it sits at the mouth of the river Dart.
Makes perfect sense.
But Mill pointed out that if an earthquake happens and the river completely changes course, the town doesn't suddenly lose its name.
Oh, right. It's still called Dartmouth?
Exactly. The meaning evaporates, but the tag remains.
But on the other hand, if a parent names their child Justice or Grace, that is clearly a descriptive hope.
Right, for sure.
That feels like a lot more than just a barcode. It has real intention behind it. So aren't both philosophical camps a little bit racist?
You've essentially just voiced the exact counter-argument that philosophers like Gottlob Frege and Bertrand Russell launched in the 20th century.
Okay, so I'm in good company.
Very good company. They pushed back hard against Mill's idea of the empty tag. They argued that proper names absolutely possess a sense.
Like a shorthand description.
Exactly. When you invoke a specific name, it instantly conjures this dense web of historical realities, attributes, and social expectations.
And Monty's research makes a really sharp distinction here that helps clear this up. We have to separate the literal meaning of a name from its real meaning.
Which is such a crucial difference.
Yeah, so the literal meaning is just what the word translates to in a dictionary. But the real meaning is the motivation. Like, why was that specific name given to that specific person by those specific parents at that exact moment in time?
And the gap between literal meaning and real meaning is where the history gets incredibly messy, especially when you factor in this linguistic phenomenon called folk etymology.
Oh, I love folk etymology.
It's fascinating. It happens over centuries. The true original meaning of a name just gets lost to time.
And the newer culture living there essentially invents a brand new literal meaning that sounds similar just to justify why they're saying it.
Exactly. They retrofit it.
I love the examples of this because it shows how adaptable human beings are. Take the name Taiwan.
Right.
If you look at how it is written today in Chinese characters, it literally translates to platform bay, which makes perfect sense, right?
Yeah, it's an island. It has bays.
You'd think mystery solved.
Yeah.
But the Chinese characters are just a phonetic sound-alike. The name actually originated from an entirely different Aboriginal Austronesian language that was spoken on the island long before.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the incoming culture just adapted the ancient sounds to fit their own modern vocabulary.
And we see the exact same mechanism at work in the ancient Near East, arguably with the most famous ancient city of all, Babylon.
Okay, break that down for us.
Well, for thousands of years, people have translated Babylon from the Akkadian language as Babilim, which translates to Gate of the God.
Which is this majestic, deeply theological title.
Right. It sounds incredibly profound. But modern scholars looking at the oldest records now believe the word Babylon is actually a pre-Semitic Proto-Euphratean word.
Wait, really? So it had nothing to do with gates?
Likely absolutely nothing to do with gates and nothing to do with gods. The Akkadian speakers moved in, heard this ancient word, and adapted it through folk etymology to mean something profound in their own language.
That is wild. It just hijacked a completely new meaning.
What's fascinating here is that proper names present a unique grammatical paradox. I mean, linguistically, they are nouns, but they completely ignore the normal rules of grammar.
How so?
Well, in English, you don't use an article. You say Babylon, you don't say the Babylon.
Oh, right.
But more importantly, proper names can survive the death of the language that originally coined them. The verbs and adjectives of a lost language might vanish from human memory entirely.
But the proper name survives.
Yes, fossilized in the dirt, just waiting to be found.
So if these names are these deeply fossilized artifacts, what actually happens in the room when a parent bestows one on a child?
Now we're getting into the sociology of it.
Right, because we are moving from the philosophy of what a name is to the sociology of what naming actually does.
Well, to anthropologists, the act of naming is considered a second birth.
A second birth.
Yeah. You have your biological birth, which just brings a physical organism into the world. But the naming ritual, that is your sociocultural birth.
That makes a lot of sense.
In the ancient world, and honestly in many traditional societies today, a person without a name is socially non-existent.
You literally cannot participate in the community.
Exactly. The name is the anchor. It immediately classifies you by your gender, by your social stratum, and crucially for our exploration of the Hurrians, by your religion.
And here's where it gets really interesting. When we talk about religious names in the ancient world, we aren't just talking about a quiet private belief, are we?
Not at all.
There is a concept here called double indexicality, and it basically means the name serves as a permanent, lifelong, living link between the human walking around the village and the divine entity embedded inside their name.
Try to visualize this in everyday ancient life. Imagine a child whose name literally translates to the storm God protects.
Okay.
Every single time that child is called to come inside for dinner, every time their name is shouted across a crowded marketplace, the community is verbally invoking the presence of that specific deity into the physical space.
The name actually creates a tether to the god.
Exactly.
And because of that tether, names become the ultimate barometer for massive cultural shifts. You don't have to guess what a society was feeling. You can literally watch them change their minds in the public record.
Yes, the data is all right there.
Monty points to the Christianization of Egypt during the Byzantine period. You can go through the tax documents and watch the traditional ancient pagan Egyptian names just suddenly plummet.
Almost overnight.
Yeah, replaced by Coptic and biblical names. And you see the exact same thing during the Islamization of medieval Iran.
Oh, where ancient Persian names were systematically swapped out for Arabic ones within just a few generations.
Exactly. It tells us that in these highly conservative ancient societies, parents were not picking names just because they sounded cute.
They definitely weren't looking for a trendy vibe.
No. A baby's name was a public billboard broadcasting the parent's exact ideological and religious mindset at the moment of birth.
It could be a desperate prayer for survival during a famine, a political statement of allegiance to a new king, or just an expression of pure theology.
Which means an ancient name is pure, unfiltered historical data.
It really is.
Yeah.
Which brings us perfectly back to the Hurrians.
Yes, because if names are this flawless cultural barometer, they are exactly the tool we need to understand that people who left us so little of their own voice.
Right.
So who exactly were the Hurrians?
The Hurrians are honestly one of the most incredible puzzles in ancient history. This was a civilization that spanned the ancient Near East, from the 3rd millennium BC all the way down to the 1st millennium BC.
So we are talking about a massive geographic footprint.
Massive. They interacted with the Sumerians, the Akkadians, the mighty Hittite Empire, the Egyptians.
And yet, for a very long time, modern historians didn't even know they existed.
It's crazy, but yeah. They were finally brought to light in the late 19th century when archaeologists were digging at El Amarna in Egypt.
And they found the Mitanni letter, right?
Yes. It was diplomatic correspondence sent from a Hurrian king named Tuatha to an Egyptian pharaoh. And the mind-blowing part was it was written in a language that no modern scholar had ever seen before.
And the language itself is so entirely alien to the languages around it. It's not Semitic, it's not Indo-European. It is described as being agglutinative and ergative.
Right, and those linguistic terms tell us so much about how they viewed the world.
Break those down for us. What does agglutinative mean?
Agglutinative means that instead of having separate words for prepositions or pronouns, they just glue suffixes onto a root word.
Creating these long, train-like chains of meaning?
Exactly. It's like building sentences out of Lego bricks. And ergative is even more fascinating.
How so?
Well, in English, we focus heavily on the subject doing the action, like the boy broke the vase. But an ergative language focuses on the state of the action itself. The grammatical structure treats the subject of an intransitive verb and the object of a transitive verb exactly the same way.
Wow, so it represents a profoundly different cognitive way of mapping reality.
It really does. But because their language was so different, the surrounding empires didn't really know what to do with them.
Yeah, the Sumerians and Akkadians used this term, Subartu, to describe them. But it wasn't a real country, was it?
No, it was just a shifting mental map that basically meant those people up in the north.
Which brings up a really thorny issue in all this. If they spoke this highly unique language, how do modern scholars classify them? Are they a specific race? An ethnic group?
This is a vital part of Monti's framework, and we should clarify, we are just impartially laying out the thesis's argument here.
Right, we're not taking a stance on the modern politics of it, just explaining Monti's view.
Exactly. The author argues very strongly against using the word ethnicity to describe the Hurrians. In this academic view, ethnicity is a relatively modern, static convention.
So the thesis argues that the concept of ethnicity actually carries a lot of derogatory, Eurocentric baggage.
Yes, tracing all the way back to the ancient Greek words ethnos and barbaros, which originally just meant foreigners whose language sounded like babbling to Greek ears.
So Monti asserts that applying rigid 19th century biological concepts of race to ancient peoples completely distorts the reality on the ground.
Right. Instead, Monti insists we must view the Hurrians as a socio-cultural complex.
So what does this all mean for us? If we entirely throw out the idea of static ethnicity and use this term sociocultural complex, how do we actually track these people?
It's a great question.
Because if a sociocultural complex is constantly shifting and adapting, isn't the language they speak the only real DNA we have to identify them? Like, if you speak Hurrian, aren't you Hurrian?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Monti's point is that language is a vital marker, but it is not a biological absolute. It's a behavior, not a genetic fence. Material culture, like the shape of your pottery or the type of bronze swords your army uses, can change incredibly fast through trade. Language changes much more slowly.
Which makes it a great tracking tool.
Exactly. But it is still fluid. A brilliant example of this is found in the ancient city of Nutsi.
What happened in Nutsi?
Archaeologists found administrative documents written by scribes who are clearly native Hurrian speakers, but they were writing the official city documents in the Akkadian language.
Well, interesting.
Yeah, while heavily injecting their own native Hurrian grammar rules and vocabulary into the Akkadian text. It's a perfect blend.
So it proves that the Hurrians were an open, adapting sociocultural complex, interweaving with their neighbors, rather than a closed, isolated ethnic monolith.
That's the argument, yes.
Okay, so if we embrace this idea that the Hurrians were this dynamic, fluid complex of people, we can finally look at how they named their children to reverse engineer their gods.
Yes, the core of the mystery.
Because, again, we don't have libraries full of Hurrian mythology.
Yeah.
We have a few lucky finds, like the Song of Release, which is a bilingual Hurrian Hittite text discovered in the 1980s.
Right, but largely the religious texts just aren't there. So scholars rely almost entirely on this concept called Satznamen.
Satznamen, which is a German academic term that literally translates to sentence names. Right.
Yes. The Hurrians didn't just give their children single word names. The name was an entire grammatically complete sentence that combined the name of a specific deity with an active verb.
Give me a sense of what that actually sounded like. Instead of naming your kid Hope or Joy, what are you naming them?
You would name them something like, the god Teshub has given victory, or the goddess Shashka is merciful.
Wow. So the child's identity is permanently wrapped inside a theological
It
statement.
really is.
And this is where the magic trick of data science meets ancient history.
It's so cool.
By digging up tens of thousands of these sentence names, pulling them from mundane grain receipts, legal contracts, diplomatic letters spanning hundreds of years, scholars can actually build a statistical heat map of the Hurrian pantheon.
They literally just count the data. They can tell you exactly which gods were worshipped in which specific farming villages, and exactly what century a certain goddess suddenly became overwhelmingly popular.
It is entirely crowdsourced theology.
Completely. And the data reveals just how incredibly prestigious this Hurrian sociocultural complex really was.
You can actually see their cultural power invading other empires, can't we?
Yes, especially during the New Kingdom period of the Hittite Empire.
And the Hittites were a dominant rival superpower, speaking a totally different Indo-European language.
Right, but the royal and elite classes of the Hittites suddenly began adopting Hurrian sentence names for themselves.
Wait, I need a good analogy for this. If a mighty Hittite king suddenly takes a Hurrian name, does that mean he genuinely converted to the Hurrian religion?
It's tough to say for sure.
Or is this more like a modern billionaire buying an imported luxury car just for the status symbol? Was it just a trendy aesthetic, or did the religion actually transfer?
This raises an important question, and it gets to the very core of why onomastics is such a powerful tool. In the ancient world, you cannot separate the prestige of the luxury car from the theology.
Oh, they're tied together.
Inherently. Religion and cultural power were intrinsically linked. You couldn't just borrow the cool-sounding foreign name without also invoking the deity attached to it.
So by taking a Hurrian sentence name, that Hittite noble was actively acknowledging the power and protection of that specific Hurrian god.
Exactly. It's an infiltration of ideas.
That is fascinating.
And this highlights what Monty calls the democratic power of onomastics. I mean, in ancient history, we're usually at the mercy of royal propaganda.
Right. A king builds a giant stone monument declaring that his empire only worships the one official state god.
Exactly. But when we look at the sentence names of the local merchants, the farmers, the scribes, in that exact same city, we might find them overwhelmingly naming their children after a local, marginalized Hurrian deity.
So the names allow us to completely bypass the king's lies.
We get to see the actual lived religion of the people. We see what they really believed when the state wasn't looking.
It is absolutely incredible to think about the journey we've taken today.
It's been quite a ride.
We started with the philosophical debates of John Stuart Mill, arguing over whether a name is just an empty tag or a heavy descriptive anchor.
Right.
And we ended up using thousands of everyday ancient sentence names to resurrect the lost gods of a massive forgotten civilization.
It really proves that your personal name isn't just a word. It is the ultimate archaeological artifact.
It survives when the stone temples fall down, and it survives when the language itself goes silent.
It truly does. And, looking at Monty's research leaves us with a deeply provocative thought to ponder about our own lives.
Oh, definitely.
As we've seen, ancient peoples treated the literal meaning of their names with immense gravity. They treated them as social contracts, as living prayers, as divine billboards.
Their names were completely inseparable from their worldview.
Right. But today, in the modern Western world, our naming practices have completely shifted. We often pick a name simply because it sounds nice or because it belongs to a popular character on a television show.
That's so true.
We have almost entirely divorced ourselves from the literal etymological meaning of the names we bestow.
Wow. Yeah, if you walk down the street today and ask 10 people what their name literally translates to, most of them will have absolutely no idea.
Right. So imagine an archaeologist 4,000 years from now uncovering a massive, fossilized database of our modern names.
What will this sudden dramatic loss of real meaning tell them about our 21st century sociocultural complex?
Will they assume we lost our grand ideologies entirely? Or will they look at our naming record and conclude that our new gods are simply aesthetics, corporate branding, and fleeting pop culture trends?
That is a haunting question. If the only surviving record of our society is the list of our names, what exactly is it going to say about what we valued?
Something to think about.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Take a moment today, look up the ancient, literal meaning of your own name, and ask yourself how it connects you to the sociocultural complex you belong to right now. We will catch you next time.